I've been with my girlfriend, we'll call her Molly, for about 4 years, lived together for 3. Earlier last year our 17-year-old cat lost her battle with cancer. I've had cats my whole life and adopted her as a senior before meeting Molly. Molly never had cats before but adored her and started talking about adopting immediately. About 6 months later in December she found a youngish, 7 months, feral male who got a nasty but recoverable injury sleeping under a car hood. She fell in love immediately and so did I. I tried to give her the benefit of my experience and told her that this isn't going to be the same as adopting an adult cat who already has a sweet personality and this kitten will require a lot of patience. She said she understood and we started foster to adopting him as soon as the vet gave us the go-ahead. I still love him, but he's highlighted every single thing that's been keeping us from getting engaged. For one, Molly refuses to listen to him. He growls, he hisses at her. She started yanking him out of his carrier so often that he's afraid to go in there now. She doesn't listen to me when I try to explain what she could do to get him to warm up to her. She keeps bringing up examples of people she knows who got a cat to like them this way. I work at home and he's a completely different cat when I'm home and she isn't. He plays and sits in the window when it's just me and runs under the bed the second she gets home and only comes out to eat. I've suggested to her that we need to start seriously thinking about finding him another home before he gets too old and too scared. Every single time I bring it up she accuses me of being callous and giving up on him too easily and how she never knew pets were so disposable to me. They're not, but she's not a good fit for him. So at this point I'm beginning to think that his best shot is me breaking up with her and taking this poor cat with me. Our relationship isn't that solid, but I think it might be fixable if it wasn't for this, but he's a living being and deserves to be happy too. Would I be the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and I'd say the cat isn't even the issue. Rather, having this cat has highlighted her shitty personality. So no, you wouldn't be the a-hole for breaking up with her. And I know it's stretching a leap, but if she can't handle a little feral kitten rejecting her, what's she going to do down the road when it's a baby crying non-stop or wanting cuddles from someone that isn't her? Not the a-hole, she's the issue, not the cat or you. She's borderline abusive to that cat. You're the a-hole. I know I'm going against the grain here, but I've done a decade of fostering, rescue, and adoptions for cats, and I think you're doing this the wrong way. I mean, break up with her if you want to, that's fine, whatever. But it sounds like she wants to try to fix the problem, which is her relationship with the cat, and has talked to her animal-savvy friends about it. Well, she should be listening to you. It kind of seems like she's decided your advice doesn't work, and maybe it doesn't. Seeking other opinions and doing research is how you should approach living with a new animal for the first time. Even if your partner is an expert, you should be seeking outside sources of information and not just relying on them. And, let's be real, you aren't an expert, you're just an experienced cat owner. Well, yanking out of a carrier doesn't sound good. Lots of cats hate carriers. Your cat probably associates his carrier with pain since he's been in and out of the vet with an injury, and sometimes a little, gentle, non-injurious manhandling is how you get a resistant cat into and out of a carrier. In the interest of acknowledging this is a one-sided story, I'm not crying animal abuse because a cat is afraid of a cat carrier. Although you should check to see if your carrier can be unscrewed on the top, which is a much easier way to get them out. Getting them in is still just as tough, although there are now zip top and mesh top carriers for easier access. Can you clarify more what she does that the cat doesn't like? All you really say is that she doesn't listen to you. But what does she do that the cat doesn't like? Cats that don't like you usually vanish, and you mostly don't interact with them. It sounds like she's willing to be patient and let it take time and to try a variety of things. She probably gets frustrated and sad, and unlike other posters, I definitely think getting texts like, "Look, when you're gone he's so much happier," is cruel. I also can't figure out how long you've had the cat. If it's less than 6 months, I'd say you're jumping the gun. Honestly, this sounds way more like you just aren't into her and are mad that she isn't listening to you. I get it. It is aggravating when you objectively know more than your partner and they don't listen. But you seem to be taking all this frustration and anger at her not behaving correctly and focusing it into this laser beam of not getting the cat to like you properly. I mean, I've tamed up more than a dozen angry babies and half a dozen shy adults, and I can't tell you what the proper way to get a cat to like you is. All cats are different. Some need to be ignored, others need mandatory petting time. Some flourish with long-distance play and interaction. Others need food bribes and only food bribes. Some just take time no matter what. What makes you so sure that you're right and her friends are wrong? When did you become an expert on taming up semi-feral babies? You and your girlfriend should be treating this like a team effort, supporting each other and trying to find solutions, and you should acknowledge that getting rejected by an animal hurts a little and also bruises the ego a bit. Instead, you seem to be doubling down on knowing the right way and just having a wayward girlfriend. Break up with her because you don't like her, not because your cat doesn't. For the past month, my 24-year-old niece has been living with us. I'll call her Princess because that's what her parents call her most of the time. She is a medical researcher, studied medicine but wasn't interested in the practical side of things, more interested in the theoretical, and took up a position near where we live, and my sister convinced me to let her stay so she can save money. I was apprehensive because I know this girl has been coddled and babied since she was little. We have a 4-bedroom house. Me and my husband, my son, 16, my daughter, 21, and our 4-year-old Rottweiler Freddy. I told sister that Princess would have to sleep on the sofa in the living room, which she seemed okay with, but when she arrived both mother and daughter set about trying to convince me to clear out the dog's room and let her sleep in it. Princess even said it would be okay to make him sleep outside because it's just a dog. It's getting a lot colder now and I'd never let Freddy sleep outside. I told Princess that this is where she'd sleep, take it or leave it, and she was, and still is, really sulky about it, sulking about how we think a dog is more important than her. In all honesty, I was right in thinking having Princess stay is more trouble than it's worth. She goes out clubbing and partying a lot and makes no effort to keep the noise down when she comes home in the early hours of the morning. Since she's arrived, the living room smells of weed, and that smell definitely wasn't there before she came. She's also rude to my kids. My daughter got engaged and we were all delighted, but Princess was lovely enough to say that if her boyfriend had gotten her a cheap ring like that, she wouldn't even get out of bed for the wedding. Daughter was in tears because of this, and both husband and I had a word with Princess, who then cried and phoned up her mother, saying we were rude to her. Had another phone call with sister today, and she still tried to convince me to put her daughter in the dog's room. I made clear this wasn't happening, and sister got upset with me, saying how nasty it was to value pets over family. I also said that her daughter was skating thin ice and that I wouldn't tolerate her behavior for much longer. Sister was very offended and said we should be happy to have her daughter there. Sorry, but how can I be happy to have a spoiled, overgrown child who keeps trying to steal a room from a dog in my home? Everyone sucks here. The kid is clearly a brat, but you're a pretty terrible host for leaving a dog a room and making your guests sleep on the sofa. No matter who they are, that's incredibly rude on your part, and she's right to be offended. Really sounds like OP did not want Princess to move in and keeps the dog in its own room hoping she will leave. Even if you feel the dog is a third child, I have never heard of anyone giving the dog his own room. I have, if you don't have a large laundry room or something to kennel the dog in and contain toys and all the stuff. Big dogs equals big stuff, using a room for it is ideal. Giant crates don't just fit anywhere you want them, they're in the way in most houses unless you're living in luxury. Rots are awesome, but they are a big dog, and expecting someone to move all of that stuff into where exactly is downright dumb. I'm sticking with not the a-hole. They knew the conditions of staying there in advance. If they thought it was enough of a problem that it's rude, then they didn't need to come, and clearly she's only using it as a crash pad. With a weed smell and the fact that my guest is in my living room and making noise after coming in late from partying all the time, I'd have kicked them out a long time before OP. Everyone sucks here. Obviously your niece is being incredibly rude, but I don't understand why you couldn't give her the dog's room for her stay. Why didn't the dog sleep in the living room? You can't use she's being a brat as an excuse when you made the decision before she moved in. For context, I'm 28, the vet's office is literally 10 minutes away. I had my parents take my cat to the vet office because I have 2 herniated discs and can't carry the carrier and open the multiple doors and hold the carrier without fear of dropping it. I thought he had a little cold, with the only reasoning being that his ears felt a little warm. He wasn't eating as much as he normally does, and he was due for his shots anyway. So, I cooked dinner for all of us while they took him to the vet on my dime. I called them after an hour and asked how things were going, and my father told me everything was good and he had a little fever. Fast forward another hour, they come back and let themselves in, and I open the door to my mother sobbing and my father slinking in the corner. Turns out the vet found a large mass on his kidney and suspected it was stage 3-4 cancer. So my parents, without calling me, had him put down to spare my feelings. I told them both to leave and that I never wanted to speak to them again. That it wasn't their decision to make and they should have called and told me the situation so I could at the very least say goodbye and be with him. That by failing to tell me, they stole an opportunity for any closure I could have. I raised that cat from a feral kitten with his mother and his brother from the time he had his eyes open. He was only 10. I'm equally heartbroken and furious and they can't seem to understand why. They proceeded to berate and belittle me, going as far as to say I wasn't sad, just angry and that I was ruining a beautiful and tragic moment and that it was my fault because I didn't go with them. Edit, as just to be clear, the never wanting to see them again bit was after this attempt to make me feel bad for being angry. Am I the a-hole here? NTA. They proceeded to berate and belittle me, going as far as to say I wasn't sad, just angry, and that I was ruining a beautiful and tragic moment and that it was my fault because I didn't go with them. Do they often take your circumstances as an excuse to misbehave emotionally? I'd recommend calling the vet and making sure that they're being honest that, firstly, the cat was put down and, secondly, it's for the reason they said it was. It is pretty weird to diagnose a cat with kidney cancer during a walk-in appointment, even if you're there an hour or two. Apparently they took an X-ray and did blood work from what they said. I would have had them do more tests to make sure it wasn't an abscess or something benign. A higher white cell count could easily be explained as part of an infection or virus with a fever. Thinking about the whole situation just makes my blood boil more than it already is. When my cat went in for x-rays and blood tests, he cold-teed all day and was there for a good few hours, so this sounds a little dodgy to me. I'd check up if you feel like you can. This sounds awful and either way you should have been informed and been allowed that closure and that decision. NTA. It's bad enough, gigantic a-hole behavior, to put down your door's pet without telling her first, when it was entirely possible to ensure you, OP, had the opportunity to say goodbye first. But to berate you for being upset with them and they refuse to apologize. They can go to hell. I'd never speak with them again either. It requires so little common sense to comprehend this that I genuinely wonder if either of your parents have a mental illness. I just can't think of any other reasonable explanation for behaving in such an unintelligent manner. It's just so stupid it's hard to comprehend. Besides the parents being 100% the a-hole, I'd be furious at the vet for not confirming with me, the owner, on what my intentions are. Just because the parents brought the cat in doesn't mean it's theirs. OP not the a-hole, everyone else is a massive a-hole.